For just £5 a month, you can get early access to all of our podcast episodes, copies of our script, access to further information, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. Head over to patreon.com/Sunday Night Mystery. £5 a month. That's cheaper than 15 minutes of parking at Bristol Airport. Yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? Welcome back to Sunday Night Mystery, where we examine the dark and often unsolved mysteries that continue to haunt communities. I'm Brett, and tonight we review a haunting tale from Bristol's past. The story of Asha Bostan, a young part-time model whose promising life was tragically cut short. Her murder remaining unsolved for decades. In the spring of 1978, the bustling city of Bristol was gripped by the disappearance of 22-year-old Asha Bostan. Asha was more than just another face in the crowd. She was an aspiring model with dreams of gracing magazine covers. Her life, however, was shrouded in mystery and, ultimately, tragedy. Asha lived in Westbury-on-Trim and shared a flat with a friend. She was not just a part-time model, but also worked in a local insurance office as a trainee financial advisor. On a cold evening in May of 1978, she vanished without a trace, failing to turn up for her sister's wedding, an event she'd been eagerly anticipating. Despite the family's relentless efforts to locate her, including public appeals and the distribution of her striking studio portraits, there were no leads. For months, her family lived in agonizing uncertainty. 14 years later, in 1992, a discovery in the serene Mendip Hills brought a chilling twist to the tale. The remains of a young woman were found in a shallow grave. Initially, the remains were thought to belong to Susie Lamplugh, a London estate agent whose high-profile disappearance had captivated the nation. However, further investigation revealed the remains were those of Asha Bostan. From the outset, there was a prime suspect. Asha's boyfriend, 25-year-old Yasuo Soma, had been the last person to see her alive. Soma, who had met Asha in London, where she was studying English, had pursued her relentlessly, showering her with love poems, flowers, and even a silver ring. Despite his overtures, Asha had consistently turned down his marriage proposals. On the night of her disappearance, Asha had been out with a business client at an Indian restaurant in Clifton. After dining and dancing, they returned to her hotel room after midnight, only to find Soma waiting there. Witnesses recalled seeing fresh scratches on Soma's face shortly after Asha vanished, adding to the suspicion. Former police officer Brian Theobald, who had initially led the investigation, was convinced of Soma's guilt. In a bid to find answers, Theobald travelled to Japan to question Soma. However, the inquiries didn't lead to any charges. Tragically, and some would suggest suspiciously, Soma committed suicide in 1985, leaving many questions unanswered. The inquest into Asha's death concluded that she'd been unlawfully killed. Brian Theobald, despite lacking concrete proof, believed that Soma had murdered Asha at the Unicorn Hotel on May 3rd, 1978. He remarked in 1978 he believed she was dead, and when returning from Japan, was certain. Asha was involved with another man and was anxious to end the relationship with Soma, but was frightened to do so because of his drinking and suicide threats. Despite the passage of time and Soma's death, the case remains open. Detectives continue to seek new information, hoping to bring closure to Asha's family. As we find every week with each of our stories, the unsolved case of Asha Bostan is exactly the same. It raises numerous critical questions that have perplexed investigators and the public for decades. Why did Asha disappear? Asha was a young woman with a bright future ahead of her. What motivated her disappearance on the night of May the 3rd, 1978? Was it an act of jealousy, a crime of passion, or something more sinister? And what role did Yasuo Soma play in her death? Soma was Asha's boyfriend. He'd reportedly been obsessive and possessive, and he was the last person to see her alive. Did his jealousy and emotional instability lead to Asha's murder? The scratches on his face and his later suicide fuel suspicion, but without concrete evidence, the question remains unanswered. Why was Soma never charged? Despite the suspicions surrounding Soma and the compelling circumstantial evidence, authorities were unable to gather enough proof to charge him with Asha's murder. Was there a lack of forensic evidence, or did critical mistakes hinder the investigation? While Soma is the primary suspect, is it possible that someone else was involved in Asha's death? Her life involved other relationships, including a business client she dined with that night. Did someone else have a motive, or was there more to her disappearance than initially suspected? Asha's body was discovered in a shallow grave in 1992 in a remote part of the Mendip Hills. What delayed the discovery for so long? Were there missed opportunities in the search during those critical years? We ask, what were the circumstances surrounding Soma's suicide? His suicide in 1985, 7 years after Asha's disappearance, raised so many questions. Was his death an admission of guilt, or the result of unrelated issues? Did he take any secrets to the grave? Even decades later, we wonder if new evidence could emerge to help solve this case. With advancements in forensic science and renewed interest in cold cases, could new evidence or witnesses finally bring closure to Asha's family and solve this decades-old mystery? So many questions reflect the depth of the unresolved mystery surrounding Asha Bostan's death, highlighting the lingering doubt and need for closure in a case that's haunted her family and the community for so many years. The story of Asha Bostan is a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the relentless pursuit of justice. As we reflect on Asha's tragic tale, we're reminded of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of never giving up hope in the pursuit of truth. Because time, like a merciless predator, marches on, leaving behind shattered dreams and broken promises. Yet, amidst those shadows of despair, glimmers of hope remain. If you have any information that might shed light on this case, please contact the authorities. Stay safe, and until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and keep unraveling the mysteries of our world. Join us next time as we delve into another chilling mystery that continues to confound investigators and haunt communities. Until then, stay vigilant and never forget those who've been lost to the shadows. Until next week, stay safe. Remember, the truth may be hidden, but as long as we keep the investigation alive, it's never truly lost. I'm Brett, and I'll see you next time on Sunday Night Mystery. But for now, stay curious, stay vigilant, and be sure to guard yourself against the darkness that surrounds us all. I'll see you next week on Sunday Night Mystery.